Woodland Cultural Centre has a number of events coming up this week, including a virtual screening of Silent No More.
So Silent No More is a film that Woodland Cultural Centre produced that features the stories of survivors from the Mohawk Institute. So for folks that don't know, Woodland Cultural Centre is actually located at the site of the former residential school called the Mohawk Institute, which was the longest running residential school in Canadian history. And when it closed in 1970, 2 years later, in 1972, it became the Cultural Centre. And the film Silent No More provides firsthand accounts from survivors of their experience of the Mohawk Institute. It also shares historical photos and evidence of their lives here. It's a really good way for people to learn about the experience of residential school from survivors. And since the Mohawk Institute is currently under construction, forecasted to reopen this September 30th, this gives people a sort of a good opportunity to engage with this history from their home and maybe even prepare to come visit with us this fall when we reopen. It's really common that people don't know the history of residential schools or maybe don't know what the experience was like for the individual survivors. It is the 10th anniversary this year of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the calls to action that were part of that report. But many of those calls to action have not been fulfilled yet. And also for a lot of us, this history wasn't part of our curriculum. Even for a lot of us in community, I have 3 uncles that were sent to the Mohawk Institute from Akwesasne, which is quite far away. And that wasn't something that survivors didn't talk a lot about their experiences, really, I would say, until the Truth and Reconciliation Commission happened. And I think then as more people shared their testimonies, they realized they weren't alone. And so we started to know more about this history, but it's only recently been added into school curriculums. So for those of us that aren't in grade school or high school right now, Woodland Cultural Centre and the films that we've produced and the programming that we do is one of the few places as an adult that you can learn this. It's also a place where you can learn about this history with other people in your family or maybe your children, and so then you can have that dialogue with them about this history. Canada has lots of really good things in its history, but there's also bad things, and it's really important that we understand that past so that we understand where we are today, and also recognize that we haven't repaired the harms from this genocide that was enacted against Indigenous people. And to be a great country and to be part of a great country, you have to be able to look at the hard parts of your history too. And I do think it all starts though with education. We all love the phrase truth and reconciliation. It was in the Crown speech a bunch of times, I think, but just the reconciliation part. And I don't know that we're not quite ready maybe for entirely reconciliation yet. We live in a country where the majority of Indigenous people living on reserve don't have access to clean drinking water. This includes 6 nations. It's surrounded by these massive urban cities, and yet most of the community does not have potable water to their homes. And so we have a long way to go in truth telling still before we can get fully into reconciliation. But I think that it's important for Canadians to engage in that, both when we talk about things like truth and reconciliation, but also actually it's an active part of being a Canadian citizen. Most people probably aren't quite as nerdy as I am. Maybe they haven't read the Canadian Constitution, but I encourage folks, maybe that can be their Canada Day thing this year, read the Constitution, because in the Canadian Constitution, there's Section 35, which says that the rights that Indigenous people had before Canada was created as a nation were not erased by the creation of Canada as a nation. And that would include things like rights around culture and language and education and access to resources and land and all of those things. That is part of what it means to be Canadian. It's actually right embedded in the Constitution. And so I think that that is something that's an important part of being an active citizen. And I think Given the global context that we're in right now, there is no more important time for people to understand what it is to be a citizen of a nation and to be an active citizen, to understand those systems and those laws that define what a country is. And so I think that's also like a really, really sort of like base way to start. How do we talk about reconciliation? How do we talk about treaties if our treaty partners don't know their own laws? So it goes both ways, right? We as Indigenous people want to engage, we want to share our culture, we want to celebrate our culture, but we also need our allies, our treaty partners, to be aware of the legal and cultural framework that they exist in too, so that we can come to the table and have those conversations. We are opening the 50th anniversary edition of Indigenous Arts on Friday evening. So the public are welcome to join us. That starts at 6:30, and that is the longest running contemporary juried art show of Indigenous art in Canada. So it's a pretty big deal. We have over 60 works up in the gallery this year. And for folks who are interested, again, in supporting Indigenous folks, it's a really good opportunity if you like contemporary art, because you can acquire pieces at this show. They are available for purchase, most of them. It'll tell you on the wall. And so folks can come and see sort of this like such a diversity of representation of stories, of topics, and of types of artwork.